What kind of being had everything and still wanted more? Not a man, not a king, but an angel, the most beautiful being ever created. So what really happened to Lucifer? Was this simply a story about evil? Or is it actually a warning about what pride does to identity?
Today, we're not just retelling the fall of Lucifer. We're uncovering the psychology of rebellion, the danger of self-worship, and the hidden reason. Heaven's brightest being became its darkest enemy.
Many people imagine Lucifer as a monster from the beginning, but that's not how Scripture presents him. According to the biblical imagery in Ezekiel and Isaiah,
Lucifer began as something glorious, which makes the story even more unsettling. Because evil did not begin in ugliness, it began in beauty.
Before the rebellion, before hell, before Satan, there was Lucifer, a being covered in brilliance. Scripture describes him with imagery of precious stones, music, splendor, and perfection. He wasn't crawling in darkness. He stood near the throne.
Pause here. This is where many misunderstand the story. Lucifer did not fall because he was weak. He fell because he became obsessed with himself. That changes everything. Pride is dangerous because it often grows in gifted people. The more beauty, the more influence, the more admiration someone receives, the easier it becomes to confuse God's gifts with personal greatness.
At some point, admiration became obsession. Lucifer stopped looking upward and started looking inward.
Think about this. The first sin may not have been violence. It may have been self-exaltation, the desire to replace,
To move from dependence with autonomy, to no longer reflect glory, but possess it. This is deeper than arrogance. Lucifer's rebellion was an identity crisis.
He forgot he was created. And when a created being tries to become ultimate, destruction follows.
Isaiah records 5 terrifying statements.
I will ascend.
I will exalt my throne. I will be like the Most High.
Notice the repetition.
I will. I will. I will.
Rebellion always begins with the self becoming central. Not God's will, my will. Not truth, my truth. Not worship, self-worship. Lucifer's downfall was not hunger for power alone. It was hunger for identity apart from God. And humanity still struggles with the same temptation.
Scripture hints that Lucifer was not alone. Somehow, he convinced other angels to follow him.
This is one of the most chilling parts of the story. Rebellion spreads through persuasion. Not all destruction begins with force. Sometimes it begins with ideas. Lucifer likely didn't present rebellion as evil. He probably framed it as freedom. That's how deception works. It rarely announces itself honestly.
And then, war broke out in heaven.
Think about how shocking that statement is. Heaven, the place of perfection, experienced conflict. Not because God was weak, but because love requires choice. A universe without free will would have no rebellion, but it would also have no love. The possibility of rebellion is the cost of genuine freedom.
In a moment, the Shining One fell. The being who wanted to rise above all things was cast down.
This is where the story becomes tragic. Lucifer wanted elevation, but pride produced collapse. Because pride always promises ascent, while secretly engineering destruction. The fall of Lucifer reveals a spiritual law. Whatever refuses to bow before truth eventually breaks against it.
But this is where everything changes, because Lucifer's greatest weapon was never horns or fire or horror, it was imitation. Satan's strategy is not always direct destruction. Sometimes it's distraction, counterfeit identity, counterfeit purpose, counterfeit fulfillment.
Pause here. Lucifer understood something terrifying about human beings. People become what they worship. If humans worship power, they become ruthless. If they worship approval, they lose themselves.
If they worship self, they slowly collapse inward.
The story of Lucifer is not just about an ancient angel. It's about us.
Many people think pride means loudly bragging, but pride can also appear as obsession with image, refusal to admit wrong, constant need for validation,
The inability to surrender control. The deepest temptation is not merely to do evil. It is to build identity without God.
Why target humanity? Why continue the rebellion?
Because humans were created to reflect God's image, the very thing Lucifer abandoned. Satan attacks identity because he lost his own. That may explain why temptation so often attacks worth, purpose, and belonging.
Listen carefully to the serpent's words in Eden. You will be like God. The same temptation, the same lie, the same rebellion.
Think about this. The enemy did not tempt Eve with ugliness. He tempted her with elevation.
The oldest deception in history is the promise that humans can become complete without dependence on God.
Pride promises greatness, but often ends in isolation.
Lucifer wanted a throne. Yet scripture consistently portrays evil as separation, emptiness, exile. The tragedy of pride is this: it convinces someone they are becoming greater, while they slowly lose the ability to love, to trust, to connect.
The rebellion will not last forever. Scripture points toward a final defeat of evil.
But notice something important. The Bible does not glorify Satan's power. It consistently portrays evil as temporary. Darkness feels overwhelming only when viewed up close. But in the larger story, light wins.
What really happened to Lucifer? A created being rejected dependence and chose self-exaltation instead.
And maybe that's why this story still matters. Because every human heart faces the same choice. Will we worship ourselves or something greater?
Lucifer's story is not merely about the fall of an angel. It is about the danger of losing who you were created to be. Because pride doesn't always look evil at first. Sometimes it looks beautiful. Sometimes it sounds empowering. Sometimes it even feels right. Until the soul slowly forgets how to bow. So here's the question. Do you think Lucifer's greatest sin was pride? Or was it the refusal to remain dependent on God? Let me know your thoughts below. And if this story challenged the way you see rebellion, identity, or pride, stay with us for the next journey.